People forget that it's also my fantasy, and this is also something that I'm really enjoying and want to do. It's not for the weak, girls.
Like more intense than you thought it might?
Definitely.
Sorry. Okay.
I'm really enjoying and want to do it.
This viral documentary is interesting because it shows the language of a person who's not as she appears to be. What are the inconsistencies and contradictions we should look for, and what do they reveal about our zeitgeist? As I'll show in this video, Lily Phillips is stuck between two worlds, two beliefs that are mutually exclusive. One is what I'll call the empowerment illusion. This is what Lily has had to convince herself of in order to make a living. The other is what I'll call suppressed conscience or subconscious. This is what Lily deep down knows is true. How do these different beliefs manifest themselves in Lily's language? Let's find out. Welcome to the channel. Because of these conflicting beliefs, there's a lot of doublespeak in Lily's language. Let's take note of that in the first excerpt.
I'm Lily Phillips, and today I'm getting by 100 guys.
I've seen you say on podcasts and things before that your family and your parents are proud of you and what you've achieved.
Well, my parents knew straight from the start, like, about what I was doing. Yeah, I was just very open with it. Obviously at the start they were a bit apprehensive because they want me to be safe and they want me to make good decisions and stuff like that.
Lily says her parents were obviously apprehensive. Obviously is an appeal to alleged shared knowledge that all people, and thus all parents, would and should be apprehensive. The hypotactic conjunction because, which marks dependency between two clauses in a sentence, denotes a causal relation between obviously being apprehensive and safe and making good decisions. Thus, this is the first time of many that Lily's words suggest awareness of the fact that what she's doing isn't a good decision, because if you've made a good decision, there's no need to obviously be apprehensive.
I just think I can't hold myself back and do something that I'm scared what other people might think.
Your parents must be very sort of forward-thinking and open-minded, which is great, because I think if I told my parents...
Scared what other people might think, forward-thinking, open-minded. These are some of the usual platitudes that celebrities and influencers tell on TV, in vlogs, and in brave social media posts. Looking at this exchange through the lens of critical discourse analysis, there's no causal relation between the positive attitude of Lily's parents and being forward-thinking, and being open-minded isn't necessarily a good thing. Neither is being positive. What matters is what you're open-minded of. The fact that the interviewer is so quick to use these adjectives and doesn't even properly qualify them speaks to what appears to have become the hegemony in many or most Western countries, what people consider or are expected to consider more like it, good and bad, right and wrong, inclusive and exclusive, empowering and inhibiting, etc. Hegemony means the winning discourse and implies that at least two discourses have fought to become the winning discourse. Looking at what TV shows, commercials, and many celebrities supposedly applaud, empowerment as a discourse has won in mainstream media and manifests itself as phrases like, "I can do whatever I want," "This is my beautiful journey," "This is so liberating," and similar cliches or lies. Thus, any criticism will be met with immature, deceptive oversimplifications like, "Don't be so old-fashioned," "How dare you stand in the way of my liberation?" And you don't want to be seen as a killjoy, do you?
I think she's going to really liberate a lot of people, male, female, in marriages that no longer work. Because one of the things she shared is that she wasn't miserable. She had an idea of what her whole life of what marriage and family was going to look like. And then when she, the reality of that was not really making her happy. And so she's freed herself from the marriage.
The marriage wasn't making Adele happy. Yeah, that totally legitimizes freeing herself from the marriage, which is the nice-sounding word Oprah keeps using in this freedom discourse she keeps trying to convince people of. Is this the great message Oprah says will help people liberate themselves from marriages, that they aren't happy? How do Oprah and Adele even define and measure happiness?
she wanted to present a happy person to her son, which I think is so liberating because so many people stay for the children, making themselves miserable. Then the children grow up with a miserable mother. So I think that's going to help a lot of people.
I think that's true, Oprah. You got to make yourself happy, and then happy parents, happy kids is a good policy. But, you know, it's
Notably, Oprah doesn't ask any follow-up questions. Could it be Adele's definition of happiness, or maybe insatiable demands? That's the real problem. The viewers will never know. Oprah's rhetorical tactic is to repeat the freedom discourse in form of the buzzword liberated until it's imprinted in people's minds, so they start associating Adele's likely selfish actions with the euphemism liberation. It's actually a divorce, but never mind, right? Oprah's word choice is extremely deceptive. Also, what Adele says sounds like an excuse, using the miserable mother statement as a self-serving, convenient excuse, so as to not come across as selfish. It would have been interesting to hear Oprah reflect on that, as the completely unbiased interviewer she is. Next, Lily's doublespeak continues.
I mean, I'm like a part of the problem. It's so hard because like doing extreme stuff like this is not normal. Like,
But you do enjoy doing it.
yeah, exactly. And I think people forget it is my fantasy and this is what I enjoy. And so it's hard because you're like being selfish, but you're also not helping the situation.
Lily continues talking like someone who's trapped between the empowerment illusion and her suppressed knowledge that what she's doing isn't helping anyone, that it isn't helping her or the men whose money she uses to make a living. Lily stresses the words.
It's my fantasy. I enjoy.
Once again underlining one of the presuppositions in Western countries, that you should do whatever you enjoy and that no one's in a position to judge. The hedonism that pop culture has worshipped and promoted for decades has influenced the way many people are thinking and how they expect other people to be thinking too. Lily and the interviewer don't have to know the word hegemony for others to see that they speak as products of that culture or lack of culture. The way they presuppose certain things as good gives them away. If we were living in the 1700s and we were expected to carry on our family's agriculture, try using the "but I want to do what I enjoy" platitude, or "my fantasy is this or that." That's how it's made clear that certain hegemonies dominate any given zeitgeist. What's considered good in our zeitgeist wasn't necessarily considered good in the 1700s. Lily repeats this exact terminology.
I think other people in the industry definitely look down on me for doing this, but I think at the end of the day, people forget that it's also my fantasy, and this is also something that I'm really enjoying and want to do and have wanted to do before I was even in the industry.
Yes, and we wouldn't want to judge someone who's merely living out her fantasy and does what she enjoys. Objectively speaking, these aren't arguments, because people can have all sorts of enjoyments and fantasies that'll end up hurting them, and more importantly, hurting other people. For example, how many people will feel empowered by Lily to go out and do the same forward-thinking, open-minded stuff?
Forward-thinking and open-minded, which is great.
And Lily literally showed awareness of the fact that she's part of the problem.
I mean, I'm like a part of the problem.
Doing something because it's your fantasy and you enjoy it isn't a viable argument, objectively speaking, because it doesn't make it right. Next, the battle between Lily's supposed enjoyment and fantasy, the empowerment illusion, and her suppressed conscience, or subconscious, continues.
I do feel a little bit like embarrassed being like, "Mom and Dad, I'm 100 guys."
Why?
I guess because it's not really what my parents would have wanted me to do. Doesn't mean to say my parents are like going to disown me or hate me or anything like that. I just don't want them to think less of me, you know?
With this, Lily once again shows awareness of the fact that her decisions could make her parents think less of her, and also that she feels embarrassed. But what do celebrities and TV shows teach us about feeling embarrassed or ashamed? That we only feel that way because of some mean people's prejudice and judgment. We couldn't possibly feel embarrassed or ashamed because what we do is actually embarrassing and shameful, could we? No, there's always an excuse, someone else to blame. Lily's initial delay speaks to her difficulty in verbalizing the embarrassment.
Why?
I guess because...
The difficulty makes sense considering that she's trying to balance two contradictory beliefs or positions, the empowerment illusion and her suppressed conscience.
You've obviously spoken to your parents about this, right?
I actually haven't. Like, we can still be like very close and stuff like that, but I just don't think they need to know like exactly every single detail.
This isn't exactly a detail. It's an experiment that Lily and her team have advertised for. An experiment that they're literally making a documentary about. Exactly every single detail is over the top, minimizing language, and the context renders it unreliable.
But they'll find out, right?
Yeah, probably, yeah.
No, they'll be the only two people in the UK who haven't heard about this.
We're not sat here talking about, oh, I filmed this, I filmed this, because there's just no need. I remember my dad saying, like, my friends talked about you, and they know, but like, there's just no point in being like, oh, I'm doing this or doing that.
Yeah.
Lily keeps using unreliable language to downplay what she does, and the damage it likely does. She says there's no need and there's no point. However, she's just said that she feels embarrassed and doesn't want her parents to think less of her. Thus, that is the point. Embarrassment is why she doesn't tell her parents. But of course, she can't say that when she's trying to sell people an empowering narrative.
Are there days where you second guess it ever?
Not particularly. There are days where I'm sat here on a Sunday, I am feeling a little bit more lonely. My friends have all got boyfriends, and I'm like, I see a comment and people are like, God, no one's ever going to marry you or something like that. And that can definitely like make me feel a little bit like, oh God, have I chose the wrong career? But like, I just totally love my job.
Yes, and when you just totally love your job, you totally feel the need to say that you totally love it, especially when you totally start your answer with a reservation.
Not particularly.
There's a noteworthy discrepancy here. If you totally love your job, it's not exactly expected that a comment on social media will make you doubt your entire career. People get mean comments all the time, and it doesn't mean anything to them. Unless there's something in the comment that they recognize, something that they've thought of as well. Lily makes it sound like it's other people who can make her doubt, but considering her previous contradictory statements, it's a lot more plausible that it's her own thoughts, her own suppressed conscience, that caused the doubt, that it's Lily who makes Lily doubt. This point is made clearer next.
But just like people talking about your body constantly, how you look, every day someone like picking at you, I think that's the hard part, and also just the pure fact that people think so much less of you.
Yes, but it isn't only people who think that. Remember what you just said.
I just don't want them to think less of me.
Lily knows that what she does can make people think less of her. But hey, that's probably just society's mean stereotyping and judgment, right? Lily consistently uses the impersonal pronoun you, not I or me. This is distancing language. She's generalizing her thoughts. Distancing language is common when people describe something they don't like feeling, and that could potentially reveal that they aren't as happy and empowered as they pretend to be.
Yeah.
Before anyone ever meets you, they already perceive you to be something.
That's also called life. So this isn't as profound as the emotionally manipulative music guides the audience to think it is. In this documentary's attempt to make people sympathize with Lily, the distancing language continues.
Also just like all of social media, like everyone is preying on your downfall. Banks don't allow you to bank with them. Your Instagram's trying to get shut down. Like, it's just like the little things that's just like, no one likes what you do. And everyone just thinks less of you, basically.
It seems there are quite a few things that could make Lily second guess what she's doing, even though she just totally loves her job. Lily makes herself sound like a fighter when what she's describing is merely the predictable consequences of largely hedonistic choices. What seems a lot more plausible is that Lily's actually revealing her suppressed conscience here, that she's the one who fundamentally doesn't like it and thinks less of herself for doing it.
And it just took definitely a lot longer than I thought it was going to be. I think it was when it was only like 40 and I was like, I'm not even halfway yet.
Yeah.
And 40 is still a lot of people. Like, be like, I'm not even halfway like done.
That's not how people usually talk about their fantasies and what they enjoy doing. There's a big difference between these statements and these.
It's my fantasy and this is what I enjoy, and so it's not for the weak, girls, if I'm honest. It was hard.
But
I don't know if I'd recommend it.
why not?
I think if you're a different type of girl, it's very like, I don't know how to explain it, like it feels intense.
Like more intense than you thought it might.
Definitely. Sorry.
It's okay. No, it's okay. Just take
Yeah, 1 minute.
These excerpts expose the contrast and battle between the empowerment illusion, or lie, and the suppressed conscience, reality. Lily starts by emphasizing that what she's done isn't for the weak, which points to the empowerment illusion. However, considering her strong emotional reaction, it's apparent that her conscience is battling with the lie, which points to the conclusion that she isn't strong enough to handle her decisions, and rightfully so, because what she's doing and has no intention of stopping isn't normal and natural.
Like doing extreme stuff like this is not normal.
In that regard, it's relevant to note that the word weak is on her mind, suggesting that she's actually one of the weak and knows it. Lily's reaction flies in the face of all her talk about this being her fantasy and something she enjoys. When people do what they enjoy, this isn't how they react to intense experiences.
Intense.
Intense being an extreme euphemism. In that regard, euphemisms can have a self-protective function as well, to abstain from using a negative but more fitting word that reveals how you really feel. Using euphemisms can be an attempt to avoid dealing with how you really feel. There are several instances where Lily's deliberately speaking indirectly and is projecting her thoughts onto other people. Before the event, Lily had this to say.
I actually wanted to wait till marriage at one point. I just used to think it was a real special thing. As soon as I actually did it, I kind of realised that it wasn't special. And also that I just really loved it and really enjoyed it, and that I wanted to do it way more often.
It turns out it was more special, and not in a good way.
Definitely.
Sorry. Okay.
You can make up all kinds of empowering narratives, but you can't run away from your conscience. Lily's language is a testament to that.
You'd have to stand on business and be like, I'm so sorry you got to go, and like the awkward interaction of like you feeling pressure to, if like you haven't spent enough time with them and feeling like they didn't, like you didn't give them a good time because like they only got 2 minutes.
And that's what's making you feel emotional, is that maybe you think you didn't give some guys a good enough time today?
Yeah, and it's hard, I think, having the interactions with them when they're like, what, you're not going to make me finish? I've come all this way. Like, kind of like guilt tripping me a little bit.
Lily keeps using words that point to projection that has a self-protective function, because it's a lot easier to say that it's other people who are guilt tripping you than admitting that you feel guilt. The word guilt is obviously on her mind, same as words and phrases like embarrassed and think less of.
I do feel a little bit like embarrassed, I just don't want them to think less of me. You feeling pressure to, you haven't spent enough time with them and feeling like you didn't give them a good time.
Again, Lily shifts to the impersonal, distancing pronoun you when she's talking about feeling pressure and not giving them a good time. More self-protective language. Overall, this comes across as unreliable excuses that aren't the actual reason for her tears. Because her initial reaction was a strong one. Her initial reaction was how she felt about it, not about whether or not she gave them a good enough time. This point is substantiated in the following, where she talks about dissociating. Notice a pronoun shift to you again.
I think sometimes like feeling so like robotic, like by the 30th, you know, like when we're getting on a bit, I've got like a routine of like how we're gonna do this, and like it just, sometimes you'd like disassociate and be like, you know, like.
Lily keeps diagnosing herself, or at least diagnosing how she really feels, without doing it directly. Lily's subconscious clearly knows what's up, but it's easily defeated by the empowerment illusion, an illusion we see all around us. Cognitive dissonance to the nth degree. What do you think about this documentary? Let us know in the comments. Until next time.
God, I won't forget this day, Jesus.